à toutes et tous. Pour notre deuxième épisode, je me trouve dans le parc du Salesforce Transit Center qui surplombe le nouveau centre des transports publics de la baie de San Francisco depuis l'été 2018. Le Transit Center est directement connecté à la tour Salesforce qui domine désormais la skyline de San Francisco à plus de 326 mètres de hauteur en plein centre du quartier Soma. Soma est l'acronyme pour South of Market qui désigne la zone de San Francisco au sud de l'artère principale de la ville, Market Street. En 2011, suite aux pressions de Twitter au sujet d'une taxe sur les salaires, la ville de San Francisco décide d'accorder des réductions fiscales aux startups pour qu'elles puissent continuer à croître à San Francisco et éviter ainsi leur départ en périphérie. Si on tient compte que la Bay Area, avec seulement 7 750 000 habitants, représente pourtant plus de 20% de l'ensemble des investissements de VC aux États-Unis, et si on tient compte de son offre de transport en commun, on comprend mieux l'impact que ces mesures fiscales ont eu sur ce quartier de San Francisco. Délaissé encore il y a quelques années, il est devenu un des districts les plus prisés de la ville, avec un coût moyen de location avant la pandémie de 89 $ le pied carré pour un bureau de classe A. L'immobilier de bureau est un des plus coûteux aux États-Unis et dépasse même largement les prix pratiqués à Manhattan. Ce quartier est devenu également l'incarnation de la gentrification à San Francisco, avec des loyers résidentiels qui ont suivi la même croissance et qui ont plus que doublé en moins d'une décennie. Une croissance qui vient seulement de s'interrompre avec la pandémie. Soma est devenu, ces 10 dernières années, un véritable annuaire des entreprises du SaaS et du web. Salesforce, Zendesk, Square, Uber, Spotify, Airbnb ont toutes élu domicile ici. Si vous visez ces entreprises comme clients ou partenaires, leur concentration dans une superficie qui ne dépasse pas les 47 miles carrés rend sans doute la ville de San Francisco incontournable pour votre développement aux États-Unis. Je vous propose maintenant d'écouter des échanges animés par Simowitz de Numa New York avec deux de nos entrepreneurs bruxellois installés aux États-Unis. Olivier Verdin d'AppTweak, qui est établi ici à San Francisco, et Gregory Blondeau de Proxyclick, qui lui a choisi New York pour son développement aux États-Unis.
Great. So to kick it off, I'd love for each of you to introduce a little bit more about yourselves and a bit about what your company does. And so I'll kick it off first to Gregory.
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks for the intro, Francis. So Proxyclick offers a cloud-based system which is used by large organizations at the front desk to manage their flow of visitors and employees. So it's a check-in system allowing to sign in on a tablet or on a smartphone at the front desk.
Wonderful. And then let's pass that off to Olivier.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. Very excited to share everything about entrepreneurship. Okay, so I'm Olivier Verdin. I'm CEO and co-founder at AppTweak. AppTweak, it's a SaaS, it's a marketing software, a mobile marketing software. So you have all smartphones with app on the smartphone, and we help publishers to be visible on the App Store, so on the search. So we really help them to get more organic downloads.
Let's start off with the why. Why did each of you want to expand into the US? Was it something that you always had in mind for your company from the beginning of the launch, or was it, after a certain stage of growth that you, started to think about expanding beyond your home country? And so let's pass that off first to maybe Olivier.
Okay. So AppTweak is a software as a service. So from the beginning, we had customers in the US, and around 30% of our customers were coming from the US, mostly from California and New York. So yeah, from the beginning we had these customers, and we understood pretty quickly that the support was very important. The customer service was really, really important in the US. And it was so difficult with the time difference to give a quality support to our customers in the US. So we said, okay, we have to be closer to our customers. So we decided first to do a first trip, and I want to thank again Eric for the invitation at that time. It was 2017, and so it was really cool because we had already like something like 100 customers at that time. And during the 2 weeks where we were present in San Francisco, we had the occasion to talk to our customers. And at that time, it was obvious that we have to be there, because the difference to be there and talk to our customers made a huge difference for us. Even if an American company is ready to buy a European software, there is no point, there is no problem. So they are happy to buy good software from everywhere. But when it's about customer service, the requests, the requirements are much higher, and we can come back on this later on. The requirement for the customer service is something that we don't know in Europe. For me, it's a real cultural shock. It's the same when you go to the restaurants. If I spent 1 month in the US and I come back in Belgium when the restaurants were open, I was always shocked that people are not looking at you, that you have to shout to get noticed. It's absolutely different in the US. And it's true also for software, it's true for B2B. They are expecting to be like, yeah, customer is king is not just a little nice sentence, it's the reality. So that's why we said, okay, we have to be there. And then it was the beginning of our office in San Francisco.
Got it. Great. Yeah. So it sounds like you had customers first, and then that was the real impetus behind making that move. Wonderful. And Gregory, I saw you just put in the chat that it's also a very similar story to you.
Yes, and when I speak to SaaS entrepreneurs, I keep hearing the same story. You cannot be successful with a global SaaS on the global SaaS market without being successful in the US. The market has 2-year advance compared to the rest of the world. So you need to be exposed to that market in order to evolve, grow your product, because the European customers are going to ask for the same features 2 years later. And if you don't have them, the American software company will come and take your customers in Europe. So same story, 30–40% of our revenue coming from the US and North America in general at the moment. And it came, inbound leads came very quickly from the West Coast and East Coast, same story. In our case, it's not surprising innovations from those large companies on the West Coast, Airbnb, Box, Palantir, I know Apple, all of these companies landed on a website on the other side of the planet. So we thought we must move and grow into that market. And yes, same story as Olivier, customer service is key. You need to respond under a few minutes, 24/7 to your customer. You cannot afford to wait even one hour or 2 hours to respond. And that's very different compared to Europe.
Wow.
And also, and same story to the point that I also visited Eric before 2017, but I also visited Eric at the time on the West Coast. So it's a popular destination.
And it's good to have support systems when you are expanding, which I'm sure we will get to later as well. Wonderful. Great. And so, to get to like the testing phase of the market, we've talked a lot about that, in our other workshops as well, that it's really important to like test the market a bit before you come to know that it's the right market for you. And I think, Olivier, you touched on this a little bit before in terms of like your customers, how did you test the market before you came to the US? How did you get those first, US clients before you made that decision to make the full leap?
Well, as I said before, we always did some inbound marketing, so we didn't really do outbound, didn't go to the customers or trying to test the markets. So the software is available for worldwide, and we have customers in 70 countries. So the biggest country is the US, as was always the US. So it was not like we had to test, it was more that from the beginning, they were the leading country. So we listened a lot to our customers. So that's something that we did also from the beginning. And we had the luck or the opportunity to work with very big companies very soon. So they did trust us at the beginning. I'm thinking about PayPal. It was a customer like at the very beginning. Very interesting little story about this. I got a message asking for demo, and I looked at the name and I see PayPal, and sometimes you had like fake emails, people just saying, I want something, but I put a fake name in it. And when I look at the name of the guy, I just Googled it, and it was the name of an astronaut in Russia. So I was just, okay, what is this strange email, not interesting stuff. I'm going to leave, it's 8 p.m. I'm tired, I'm not going to take this call. And I'm just thinking, no, I'm not doing that, I'm going to take the call. And I took the call, and okay, this guy, Popovich, was there. And then he started to say, okay, I'm from PayPal, and we are waiting for 10 more people. And actually, it were people from SF, from New York, from Chicago, from all over the US at this meeting. So it was just like, wow, you are all there. And they told me, okay, we tried your tool for 1 month. They bought a little plan for nearly for free, and they wanted to go deeper with the enterprise plan. So I had 1 hour to make a full demo to the whole marketing team in the US. And it was very exciting. Actually, it was positive, of course, for the company, but also I learned a lot with them. So the question that they were asking, it was very, very interesting. So we learned a lot. And it's the same with Zynga. Zynga is a big mobile gaming company, like poker and Farmville. That it's probably the biggest mobile game in the industry. From my side, I didn't know anything about the gaming and mobile gaming, even really like nothing. But by participating to meetings with them, I really learned all the issues, all the questions, and they really like the fact that we were fully transparent. So we really show the numbers, we did show the algorithm, we explained everything that we are doing. And this positive attitude really, well, they loved it, and we really learned with them. So we didn't really test, we grew up with the company, with our customers.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you said. And Gregory, what about you? How did you test the market?
In our case, we have a product which is the same for every market. So we don't need to adapt it as some other software needs to do. So I would recommend any entrepreneur to very soon in their growth, as soon as a product is available, instead of translating it in French and Dutch for the Belgian market, right away go English or only English. Create AdWords in the US in some regions. List your company on Capterra, GetUp, G2 Crowd. Make sure that you're visible on these large platforms, and generate leads, inbound leads, and then take those calls in the evening. I mean, that you can't escape that. Just like Eric has to wake up very early to take this call. We as European entrepreneurs, we need to take those calls. I had them almost every night, demos, and you need to pretend that you are in the US. So you need to be careful not to scare them away with yes, nobody's in the US for you. So you need to be as convincing as possible. And then what we did is recruit one customer success person, one support person, just to spare our evenings a bit. And that was someone who worked from 10 p.m. to midnight Belgian time, meaning late evening East Coast and early evening West Coast. And I remember posting that job description on a website called We Work Remotely. Really easy to find recruits. And we got, for that 2 hours a day, we got 100 applicants in 2 days. This is something that you never see in Europe. You put a job description online and you get maybe 10 applications or 10 applicants in 2 weeks. In the US, again, very fluid market, very dynamic, immediately 100 applicants in 2 days, and the guy is still with us. 2 hours, and he's still now part of the customer success team. And so that's how we started and tested the water, but it was never let's go to the US decision. It was just obvious. And I'm sure all entrepreneurs on this call, they see the same thing on the website. They see incoming requests coming from the US, much more than from any other country in the world. So I would recommend to keep on pushing on that market and to establish, put an address on your website, use Belcham in New York or in San Francisco, to the name, use a phone number, use AirCall or other tools to have a phone number in the US, which is redirected to your number in Europe, so that they have a local number to call. Americanize your website, super important, and it will come with you. It did for all of us.
Awesome, great. And I like all those really concrete tips. That's really great, Gregory. How did you decide on location? West Coast versus East Coast? I am a native New Yorker, so I am biased, but I'm curious.
It's definitely a difficult question. For European companies, I would say that the East Coast is likely much easier. So New York or Boston is much easier, definitely. So the time zone is really a challenge anyway. Today we have this office in San Francisco, but we just opened in Tokyo and in India. And just after this call, I have a global team meeting with guys in San Francisco who are just waking up. It will be something like 7. And for Natsui in Tokyo, it will be like 2 a.m. So it's completely crazy to manage a company with all this time zone. So I would say East Coast is easier, but for our point of view, we really went for the customers. And still for what we do, we are in the mobile app marketing. It's really huge in San Francisco, in California. And I can give you this example that if I take California as a country, it would still be the biggest country for our customers. So we have, if just California is like the biggest country for AppTweak. We had some experience in San Francisco that was really funny sometimes. We went to Warner Bros. Games, okay? Cool company, they do games like Game of Thrones and stuff like that. And we went there and we had demo and there are customers who were very happy. And then a few days later, we went to Udemy. It's a learning company, and I just enter in the meeting room and I just start opening my computer, and they said, okay, this is Wi-Fi, you can plug there. I said, no, I'm already plugged in. I just, why? Oh, I'm plugged in with the Warner Bros. There were just one floor on top of Udemy, and when you look at all these companies and you look in the in all the floors, you had eBay, you had Udemy, you had Warner Bros. You had all these big names. It's just like, you just want to rank on each floor and just go sell your stuff. So it was really like, for us, it was obvious. All the big guys out there, we are talking with Facebook, we are talking with Google, but also a lot of smaller companies that you don't know who are in the ecosystem. And the ecosystem in San Francisco, I cannot say exactly this. I guess it's maybe the same in New York, but in San Francisco, it's very open. They all open doors for other guys. They move a lot from one company to another. So I can give one example. One of our customers working for eBay, everything was nice. And then he moved on to Amazon Music. And yeah, a few days later, we had Amazon Music as a customer. And we had this, like another guy from a smaller company, then he went to Uber, and a few months later, Uber was a customer. So all this ecosystem in San Francisco is huge. So I would say there are a lot of problems in San Francisco. I don't want to say that it's just easy, but if you look at the companies, if you are targeting tech companies, San Francisco, it's still a very good place to go. There are a lot of difficulties. I don't want to say it's easy. And for European companies also, New York would be much easier for us. Just the flights, it's 8 hours or 11 hours. The time difference, it's 9 hours or 6 hours. It makes a huge difference when you have to work on a daily basis.
Gregory, do you have anything to add?
Yes, you should look at your market. If you need to partner with the big tech companies or they are your customers, obviously the West Coast is better. If not, and it's okay, you can be anywhere in the US. We picked New York because it's the closest. You can jump on a flight and be in a meeting on the next afternoon almost. It's closer, but also we now have 20, 25 people in the US, a lot of remote actually also in Europe. But it's important to have as many hours of interactions. If you're in New York, you can go back and forth twice during one afternoon, and that's very valuable in those exchanges. If you're in the US, it's really, on the West Coast, it's really difficult. You have just one interaction at the end of your day. You're not efficient as much as in the morning. So you lose a lot of inefficiency. So our preference was the East Coast, and New York was the obvious choice, although it's very, very, very expensive. So compared to other places, recruitments profiles are very expensive. I actually moved with my family to New York right after the fundraising, and it was like 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And long story short, we came back to Europe 4 or 5 months later because there was no point being home and not being able to meet the people and the customers over there. So the trip was short-lived, but we recruited our CMO and our VP of Sales Global are both in the US. So we have a global team.
Great. And let's get into some of the challenges that you may have had to tackle in this expansion. People in America, they're really good at selling themselves, but that doesn't mean they're going to be good at selling your product, which is oftentimes a hard lesson to learn. Great. Gregory, do you have what were your biggest challenges?
Recruitment is definitely one. I fully agree with Mohamed. It's very, very difficult to recruit. Americans are born salespeople. They can sell themselves as no one else, and so you're always impressed. And it's difficult not to be too enthusiastic. So that's one of the reasons, by the way, why we were determined to have a US investor to help us with the recruitment, with especially the key hires, key partnerships, contracts, job offerings, cost, benefits, all of that it's super important in the process. Understand how the market works. You need also to be quickly with when you see a good candidate. You need to fight for the good ones, and you receive a lot of applicants. So it's not easy to read through them.
Great. And Olivier, what about you? What were some of your biggest challenges in this expansion?
Recruitment is like a big challenge for humble Belgian guys. So we had the same experience, and the same between Belgium and French. You are already French people already sell themselves much better than Belgium. Also in Belgium, even it doesn't look good to sell yourself too much. So we try to be very, very humble. So I agree with this. In San Francisco, it's also a huge challenge because you compete against Facebook, Google, and all these big guys, or against companies who are funded but with a lot of money. So you have to go Yeah, it's very difficult. You have to make sure that to know exactly what you want. If some people here want to do some technology, I would really advise of not recruiting developers in San Francisco. Why? Because probably the best guys are already in big companies, and you will still pay a high price, but not for the same quality as you get in Europe. But still, you need to get some marketing people, sales people, support, customer success. So that's something really difficult. I had a first company in the US like 20 years ago, so I used to know a little bit about that. What was more difficult for us this time was the immigration. So we wanted to get one of our employees to work in San Francisco. She had a senior role, but we had to do all the immigration. And from my first company, it was pretty easy. It was in 2000. And now we did the same in 2018. It was really very difficult. You have to invest at least 200K. It can be little when you are funded, but when you are profitable and self-funded, it looks like big money. And it's not just the 200,000 investment. You have to pay the lawyers, you have to get the office. The office is the same room like my own room here, like, I don't know, 12 square meters, and we pay 6K per month. So everything is really, really expensive. And so be careful of not going cheap in the US. I really see the US is like the first league. So everything costs much more. The competition is higher. So it's a wonderful market, but don't come too early to this market. This would be my advice. Maybe it's not nice to say that like that, but and come when you have some customers already. You can start to get customers without having an office.
Maybe one thing we're noticing on our end as well, I forgot to mention, is also the US mentality is much more business driven and business minded. And so now that we have almost 100 people, 25 from the US, you start seeing an impact on the culture of the company, a good impact, but you need to manage that impact because you see the European more socialistic approach, I'm simplifying, versus the American business-minded approach. Sometimes there is a bit of a clash, and so you need to manage that with by managing the culture, the people, and building the bridges between those two approaches.
Great, wonderful. I think that's all really fantastic insight. What advice would you share to founders that would want to expand in the US? Like, what would be your one biggest main takeaway for these founders today with talent? Great. So, Gregory, what would be your biggest piece of advice or takeaway today?
Go as soon as possible. Don't wait. Whatever the stage of your company, put those AdWords out. Add a phone number. It's cheap now. Add an address. Use Belcham if you don't have any other one in New York, and be exposed to the US market.
Love it. And Olivier, what about you? What's your biggest piece of advice?
No, I agree with Gregory. I would say I was a bit afraid when you said go quickly, because I would not go quickly there, but I would do my software as quickly available for the US, because it's still the biggest market in the world. They have money, they're ready to pay. I saw one remark in the chat, any regrets in general? So not a single one. So we make mistakes. It's not easy every day, but the challenge is really fun. There are a lot of, the potential is huge, really huge. It's really fun to have a business worldwide. We are very proud also to have these customers. So it's very exciting. So I would say, yeah, one advice is go quickly outside Belgium. This would be my and go worldwide. And then you will see if your product is good for the US or maybe for Asia.
I want to thank so much Olivier and Gregory for joining us today to share their insight and their experience with us today.
Nous pouvons être fiers de ces deux success stories d'entrepreneurs bruxellois. Je suis convaincu que les conseils d'Olivier et de Gregory vous seront précieux pour réussir vos premiers pas sur le marché américain. Merci d'avoir suivi ce deuxième épisode de Connecting Brussels with Silicon Valley et à très bientôt j'espère.